Long, long ago, in a galaxy far, far away, humans were the underdogs. Picture a school playground. You got the big, strong kids who always win at dodgeball. Then, there were the humans. Most aliens thought of them like clumsy puppies, kind of cute, but not exactly the smartest or toughest. The Zizi Glorg, with their tough shells and laser claws, saw humans as soft and squishy. The crystalline Xyler, who lived for logic and reason, found human emotions confusing and messy. Even the plant-like Grockner, usually peaceful, thought humans were too loud and unpredictable. They're always crying or laughing. The Xyler would hum, their voices like tinkling glass. So, illogical, the Zizi Glor grumbled. They break too easily, not worth the trouble. Humans were known for their art, their music, and their feelings. They felt things deeply, from joy to sadness, anger to love. But in a galaxy where strength and logic were prized, those feelings were often seen as weaknesses. Other species thought humans were always making mistakes. They were disorganized, always arguing, and never seemed to agree on anything. The galaxy didn't see the good in humans. They didn't see how humans could be so creative and never give up. They didn't know how humans could feel so much love and be so kind. So, humans were mostly left alone. They lived on their little blue planet, making art, telling stories, and feeling all those big feelings. The rest of the galaxy figured they'd stay that way. Small, unimportant, and a little bit silly. Nobody expected them to ever do anything amazing. Nobody thought they had any real power. They were just humans. Little did the galaxy know, they were about to get a big surprise. Then, from the darkest corner of the galaxy, something terrible arrived. It wasn't like anything anyone had ever seen before. Imagine a swarm of angry bees, but instead of bees, it was a cloud of darkness that swallowed everything in its path. They called it the Void. The Void wasn't just a monster or an army. It was more like a disease that spread from star to star, turning planets into dust and leaving nothing behind. The Xyler tried to use their logic to understand it, but the Void didn't follow any rules. The Zizi Glorg tried to fight it with their laser claws, but the Void just absorbed the energy. The Grockner tried to reason with it, but the Void didn't listen. Planet after planet fell silent. Stars winked out of existence. The galaxy was terrified. The mighty empires that had ruled for centuries began to crumble. Alliances that had stood for thousands of years broke apart as everyone tried to save themselves. The Zizi Glorg homeworld was devoured in a week. The Xyler cities turned to crystalline dust. The Grockner forests withered and died. The leaders of the galaxy met in a secret space station, their faces grim. "We're doomed," said the Zizi Glorg Emperor, his voice shaking. "There's nothing we can do to stop it. Our logic is useless against this chaos," the Xyler Prime speaker whispered, her crystalline body dimming. Even the ancient Grockner elder sighed. "The Great Root has foreseen our end. The Void cannot be reasoned with." Panic spread like wildfire. Ships filled with refugees fled towards the edges of the galaxy, hoping to escape the Void's reach. But the Void was faster. It was relentless. It was everywhere. The galaxy was losing hope. Everyone was ready to give up. Everyone except the humans. Back on their little blue planet, they were watching the news with worried faces. They knew the Void was coming for them, too. But instead of running, they started to talk. They started to plan. They started to feel. While the Void marched closer to Earth, the galactic community was falling apart. The once proud Zizi Glorg fleet, known for its impenetrable shields, was scattered, its ships reduced to drifting metal. The logical Xyler, their minds unable to comprehend the senseless destruction, succumbed to despair, their crystalline structures shattering into dust. The peaceful Grockner, who had always sought harmony, saw their ancient forests burned away, their connection to the Great Root severed. The Galactic Council, once a symbol of unity, became a place of blame and infighting. Species accused each other of weakness, of failing to provide adequate defenses, of hoarding resources. Trust evaporated, replaced by fear and suspicion. Trade routes collapsed. Communication networks failed, and planets were left to fend for themselves. Refugee ships, packed with desperate survivors, clogged the space lanes, only to be overtaken by the void. Distress signals went unanswered. The galaxy was drowning in a sea of sorrow and destruction. The Xyler, in their final broadcast before their homeworld was consumed, lamented, "Our logic failed us. We believed in order, but the void is pure chaos. There is no solution." The ZZ Glorg, stripped of their armor and pride, sent a desperate plea. "We were wrong to rely on strength alone. We should have learned from others, but now it is too late." The Grokner, as their ancient trees turned to ash, whispered a warning. "We forgot the importance of connection. Without unity, we are nothing." Even the bravest warriors, the wisest scholars, and the most compassionate healers gave up hope. The void seemed unstoppable, inevitable. The galaxy prepared for its end, a silent, lonely death in the cold darkness. All that remained was the small, blue planet, where humans, despite their fear, refused to surrender. They were the only flicker of light in a dying galaxy. The news from across the galaxy was grim, but on Earth, a different kind of story was unfolding. Instead of panic, there was purpose. Instead of despair, there was determination. The humans, who had always been seen as weak and chaotic, were showing a side of themselves the galaxy had never imagined. The first thing they did was stop fighting each other. All the countries, all the different groups, all the people who used to argue and disagree came together. It wasn't easy. There were still disagreements, still hurt feelings, but they knew that if they didn't work together, they wouldn't stand chance. "We may not always agree," said the president of Earth in a global broadcast, "but we all agree that we want to survive. We all agree that we want to protect our home. And we all agree that we will not give up without a fight." Then they started to prepare. They didn't have super weapons or impenetrable shields, but they had something else: creativity. They used their art, their music, and their stories to inspire each other. They remembered all the times in their history when they had faced impossible odds and found a way to overcome them. Scientists worked day and night, trying to understand the void, to find a weakness, to create a defense. Engineers built new machines, adapting old technology, finding new uses for everything they had. Doctors and nurses prepared to care for the wounded, knowing that there would be many. And the ordinary people, they did what humans do best. They helped each other. They shared food. They offered shelter. They comforted the scared. They organized neighborhood watches. They volunteered at hospitals. They did everything they could to make a difference. They didn't retreat. They didn't surrender. They stood their ground, ready to face the darkness, not with weapons of destruction, but with something far more powerful: the strength of the human spirit. They were scared, yes, but they were also brave. They were ready to fight for their home, for their families, for their future. The galaxy may have given up on them, but they hadn't given up on themselves. They were ready to show the galaxy what humans were really made of. The void arrived at Earth like a storm, a swirling mass of darkness that blotted out the sun. The few remaining satellites sent back images of its approach, terrifying and inevitable. Many expected Earth to fall quickly, like all the other planets. They expected a brief struggle, followed by silence. They were wrong. Humanity's armies, though small compared to the fallen empires, were ready. They didn't have laser claws or crystalline shields, but they had something the others didn't: strategy. They used the Earth's geography to their advantage, setting up defenses in mountains, deserts, and oceans. They used their technology to create energy weapons, sonic disruptors, and magnetic fields, all designed to weaken or slow the void. But the fight wasn't just about weapons. It was about will. Every soldier, every pilot, every sailor knew that they were fighting for more than just their own lives. They were fighting for their families, their friends, their home, their future. They fought with a ferocity that surprised even themselves. Pilots flew daring missions, dodging the void's tendrils to strike at its heart. Soldiers held their ground against impossible odds, refusing to give an inch. Sailors navigated treacherous waters, protecting the coastlines. And behind the lines, the scientists, engineers, doctors, and ordinary citizens worked tirelessly to support the war effort. They invented new technologies, repaired damaged equipment, cared for the wounded, and kept the lights on. They didn't just fight the void. They fought the fear, the despair, and the exhaustion. Even children helped, collecting scrap metal, writing letters to soldiers, and drawing pictures of hope. Everyone played a part. Everyone contributed. Everyone fought. The void pushed hard, but humanity pushed back harder. They adapted to its attacks, learned from their mistakes, and never gave up. They showed the galaxy that even the smallest, weakest species could be a force to be reckoned with when they were united and determined. The humans weren't just resisting. They were fighting with every fiber of their being. They were showing the true meaning of courage. They were showing the galaxy what it meant to be human. The fight against the void wasn't just a military operation. It was a complete mobilization of human society. Imagine a giant puzzle where every piece, no matter how small, was essential to completing the picture. That's how Earth fought. The armies, navies, and air forces worked as one, sharing information, coordinating attacks, and supporting each other without hesitation. Old rivalries between different branches were forgotten. They were all soldiers of Earth now. Scientists, usually stuck in their labs, became frontline consultants, analyzing the void's behavior, developing new weapons and defenses, and finding ways to protect the population. They worked with engineers who turned their ideas into reality, building shelters, designing equipment, and finding innovative solutions to seemingly impossible problems. Doctors and nurses, overwhelmed by the wounded, worked around the clock, using every skill and every resource to save lives. They were aided by ordinary citizens who volunteered to help in hospitals, providing comfort, cleaning supplies, and assisting with medical procedures. Civilians became an integral part of the defense effort. Farmers grew food, factory workers produced supplies, teachers educated children, and artists created propaganda to boost morale. Everyone used their skills to contribute to the war effort. Even those who couldn't fight or work found ways to help. They donated blood, collected supplies, wrote letters to soldiers, and offered emotional support to those who were struggling. The governments of Earth, once divided by politics and ideology, worked together seamlessly, coordinating resources, making decisions, and communicating with the public. They were transparent and honest, keeping the people informed about the situation and asking for their help. It was a symphony of human cooperation, a testament to the power of unity. Every person, every skill, every resource was channeled towards a single goal: the survival of Earth. The humans showed the galaxy that their greatest strength wasn't their weapons or their technology, but their ability to come together, to support each other, and to fight for what they believed in. They were a single organism, a unified force, and they were ready to defend their home to the very end. There was the story of Dr. Aristhorn, a brilliant but eccentric physicist who had always been dismissed as a crackpot. When the void arrived, he dusted off his old theories about sonic resonance and, working with a team of volunteer engineers, created a device that could disrupt the void's energy field with focused sound waves. The device was crude, unreliable, and dangerous to operate, but it bought humanity precious time. Then there was Captain Eva Rostova, a seasoned pilot who lost her entire squadron in the first wave of attacks. Instead of giving up, she modified her fighter jet with experimental technology, turning it into a void-hunting machine. She flew countless missions, risking her life every time, and became a symbol of hope for the entire planet. And there was Maria Sanchez, a schoolteacher who turned her classroom into a shelter for displaced families. She organized food drives, provided medical care, and taught children to read and write, even as the void loomed closer. She showed the world that even in the darkest of times, education and compassion could still thrive. One day, a group of engineers discovered that the void was vulnerable to extreme cold. They quickly repurposed a network of geothermal plants, turning them into giant ice cannons that could freeze the void's tendrils. The process was risky, and many engineers sacrificed their lives to keep the plants running, but their efforts slowed the void's advance. A group of artists painted murals on the walls of shelters, creating images of hope, resilience, and unity. Their art reminded people that even in the face of destruction, beauty could still exist. Ordinary people made countless sacrifices, giving up their homes, their possessions, and even their lives to protect their loved ones and their planet. They showed the galaxy that human resilience was limitless, that human compassion was boundless, and that human courage could overcome any obstacle. These were not just stories of survival. They were stories of the human spirit at its finest. They were the stories that would be told for generations to come. But even with all their courage and ingenuity, the humans were losing. The void was relentless. It adapted to their attacks, found weaknesses in their defenses, and pushed them back inch by inch. Cities were destroyed, lives were lost, and hope began to dwindle. The sonic disruptors, though effective at first, were quickly countered by the void, which adapted its energy field to become immune to their effects. Captain Rostova's void-hunting fighter was damaged in a daring raid, and she was forced to eject, her fate unknown. Maria Sanchez's shelter was overrun, and she and her students were forced to flee, seeking refuge in the mountains. The ice cannons, though powerful, were vulnerable to sabotage, and many were destroyed by void-controlled creatures. The front lines were constantly shifting, and the humans were forced to retreat, abandoning territory and resources. Food and supplies became scarce, and rationing was implemented. Disease spread through the refugee camps, and morale plummeted. Many began to question whether the fight was worth it, whether they should just give up and accept their fate. The President of Earth, in a somber address to the nation, warned that the situation was critical. "We are facing the greatest challenge in human history," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "The void is strong, and our resources are dwindling, but we will not surrender. We will fight to the very end." But even as she spoke, the void was closing in. It had breached the last line of defense and was now threatening to engulf the entire planet. The end seemed inevitable. The galaxy, watching from afar, held its breath, expecting the final silence. The humans were exhausted, battered, and broken, but they refused to give up. They dug in their heels, prepared for the final stand, ready to face the darkness with courage and determination. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and outmatched, but they had one thing the void didn't: hope. And as long as they had hope, they had a chance. But could hope alone be enough to defeat such a powerful enemy? The fate of Earth, and perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. As the void prepared to engulf the last remaining cities, a small group of scientists made a desperate gamble. They had been working on a theory that the void wasn't just a force of destruction, but also a form of energy. And if it was energy, it could be redirected. The plan was audacious, almost suicidal. They would create a massive energy field, using every power source on the planet, power plants, generators, even car batteries, and channel it into a single point. The goal was to overload the void, to disrupt its energy field from within, to turn its own power against it. The risks were enormous. The energy field could destabilize, causing a catastrophic explosion that would destroy the planet. The void could absorb the energy, becoming even stronger. But they had no other choice. Working against the clock, the scientists and engineers raced to complete the project. They connected power grids, rerouted energy flows, and built a massive antenna to focus the energy. The entire planet buzzed with activity, a symphony of human ingenuity and determination. Finally, the moment arrived. The antenna glowed with an intense light, and a beam of pure energy shot into the heart of the void. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the void began to tremble. Its swirling mass of darkness flickered and pulsed, as if it were in pain. The energy field was working. The humans had found a way to fight back, not with weapons of destruction, but with the power of their minds. But the void was not going down without a fight. It unleashed a torrent of energy, trying to overwhelm the human defenses. The antenna strained, the power grids overloaded, and the planet shook. It was a battle of wills, a test of human endurance. The scientists, engineers, and ordinary citizens held their breath, praying that their plan would work. They had poured everything they had into this one last effort. The fate of Earth and the galaxy depended on it. And then, something amazing happened. The void began to shrink. The shrinking void thrashed and writhed, its dark tendrils flailing wildly, trying to break free from the energy beam. But the humans held firm, channeling every last ounce of power into the antenna. The sky crackled with energy, the air thrummed with tension, and the fate of the planet hung in the balance. Slowly, painstakingly, the void continued to shrink. Its darkness receded, revealing patches of blue sky that had been hidden for months. The sun peeked through the clouds, casting a warm glow on the battered landscape. Hope flickered in the hearts of the weary humans. But the void was not defeated yet. It gathered its remaining energy, preparing for one final, desperate attack. It unleashed a wave of darkness, a surge of power that threatened to overwhelm the human defenses. The antenna groaned, the power grid sparked, and the planet trembled. Just when it seemed that all was lost, Captain Eva Rostova returned. Her fighter jet, battered but still functional, soared through the sky, firing a volley of energy missiles at the heart of the void. The missiles struck their target, adding their power to the human energy beam. The void shuddered, its darkness convulsed, and then, with a final, deafening roar, it imploded. The sky cleared, the sun shone brightly, and the earth was bathed in a golden light. The void was gone. The humans had done it. They had defeated the unstoppable enemy, not with weapons of destruction, but with the power of their minds, their courage, and their unity. They had shown the galaxy that even the smallest, weakest species could overcome any obstacle if they worked together and never gave up. The galaxy, which had been watching in stunned silence, erupted in cheers. Messages of congratulations poured in from across the stars. The humans, once dismissed as insignificant, were now hailed as heroes. They had saved the galaxy from destruction, and in doing so, they had revealed their true power. The power of the human spirit, the power of hope, the power of unity, the power to never give up. For a long moment after the void disappeared, the galaxy was silent. The Xyler, the Ziziglorg, the Grockner, all the species that had dismissed humanity as weak and insignificant, were stunned. They couldn't believe what they had just witnessed. The Xyler, who valued logic above all else, struggled to comprehend how a species as emotional and chaotic as humans could have accomplished such a feat. Their calculations, their predictions, their entire understanding of the universe had been turned upside down. The Ziziglorg, who prided themselves on their strength and military might, were humbled by the humans' courage and determination. They realized that true strength wasn't just about laser claws and impenetrable shields. It was about the will to fight, the refusal to surrender, and the ability to unite in the face of adversity. The Grockner, who sought harmony and balance, were inspired by the humans' compassion and resilience. They saw that true harmony wasn't just about peaceful coexistence. It was about helping each other, supporting each other, and fighting for what was right. The galaxy had underestimated humanity for centuries, focusing on their flaws and ignoring their strengths. They had seen their emotions as weaknesses, their chaos as disorganization, and their fragility as vulnerability. But now they saw things differently. They saw that human emotions were a source of empathy and compassion, that human chaos was a catalyst for creativity and innovation, and that human fragility was a reminder of the importance of life and the need to protect it. The galaxy realized that human strength wasn't just in their weapons or their technology. It was in their resolve, their unity, and their refusal to surrender. It was in their ability to adapt, to overcome, and to never give up hope. It was in their humanity. The day the void disappeared, the galaxy stopped calling humans weak. They started calling them something else, unstoppable. And they knew, deep down, that they were right. The humans had shown them the true meaning of power, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The shift in perception wasn't just about acknowledging humanity's victory. It was about understanding how they had achieved it. The galaxy had always valued brute strength, logical precision, or peaceful harmony, but they had overlooked the power of the human spirit. The resolve of the humans was something the other species had never truly grasped. They had seen it as stubbornness, as an inability to accept defeat. But now, they realized that it was something much more profound, a deep-seated belief in themselves, a refusal to give up, even when all seemed lost. This resolve was evident in every aspect of the human resistance, from the scientists who worked tirelessly to find a way to defeat the void, to the soldiers who fought bravely on the front lines, to the ordinary citizens who supported the war effort in countless ways. It was this unwavering commitment to their cause that allowed them to overcome seemingly insurmountable odds. But resolve alone wasn't enough. It was the unity of the humans that truly made them unstoppable. They had set aside their differences, their prejudices, and their petty squabbles and come together as one, united by a common goal: the survival of their planet. This unity was evident in the way the different nations of Earth had cooperated, sharing resources and coordinating strategies. It was evident in the way the different branches of the military had worked together, supporting each other and fighting as a single force. It was evident in the way the scientists, engineers, doctors, and ordinary citizens had all contributed their skills and talents to the war effort. The galaxy realized that this unity was the key to humanity's success. It was this ability to come together, to support each other, and to fight for what they believed in that made them so powerful. It was this unity that allowed them to tap into a collective strength that was far greater than the sum of their individual parts. The galaxy finally understood that humanity's true power wasn't in their weapons or their technology. It was in their resolve and their unity. And that was why they were now seen as unstoppable, because a species that possessed such qualities could overcome any challenge, conquer any obstacle, and achieve any goal. The humans had shown the galaxy the true meaning of strength, and the galaxy would never forget it. The immediate aftermath of the Void's defeat was a mix of relief, grief, and determination. The humans had won, but at a great cost. Cities lay in ruins, millions had perished, and the planet was scarred. The rebuilding process was immense, but the same spirit of unity that had defeated the Void now fueled the recovery efforts. Nations that had once been rivals worked together to clear rubble, restore infrastructure, and provide aid to those in need. Scientists and engineers used their knowledge to develop new technologies that could help rebuild the planet in a more sustainable and resilient way. Ordinary citizens volunteered their time and energy to help their neighbors, sharing food, offering shelter, and providing emotional support. The humans also took time to honor the sacrifices that had been made. Memorials were built to commemorate the fallen, and stories were told of the heroes who had emerged during the crisis. Dr. Eris Thorne, Captain Eva Rostova, and Maria Sanchez were celebrated as symbols of human courage and ingenuity. But the biggest change was in the galactic dynamic. Humanity was no longer seen as a weak and insignificant species. They were now recognized as a force to be reckoned with, a species that had the power to overcome any challenge. The Xyler, the Zizaglorg, the Grockner, and all the other species that had survived the Void's onslaught looked to humanity for leadership and guidance. They sought to learn from the humans' example, to understand how they had achieved such a remarkable victory. The Galactic Council, once a symbol of division and infighting, was reformed, with humanity playing a key role. The new council was based on principles of unity, cooperation, and mutual respect. It was dedicated to preventing future crises and building a better future for the entire galaxy. The humans, humbled by their experience, accepted their new responsibilities with grace and humility. They knew that they had a lot to learn, but they were determined to use their power and influence to make the galaxy a better place. The age of human leadership had begun, and the galaxy watched with anticipation, wondering what the future would hold. The Xyler, humbled by their failure to understand the void, sought out human scientists to learn about their methods of problem-solving. They wanted to understand how humans could be so creative, so adaptable, and so willing to take risks. They established joint research programs, exchanging knowledge and ideas, hoping to unlock the secrets of human ingenuity. The Glorg, realizing that strength alone was not enough, sought out human military strategists to learn about their tactics and leadership. They wanted to understand how humans could be so courageous, so resilient, and so able to inspire their troops. They established joint training exercises, sharing experiences and techniques, hoping to instill the human spirit of determination in their warriors. The Grochner, recognizing the importance of unity and compassion, sought out human community leaders to learn about their methods of building strong, cohesive societies. They wanted to understand how humans could be so empathetic, so supportive, and so able to bridge divides. They established cultural exchange programs, sharing traditions and values, hoping to foster a sense of connection and understanding among all species. Species that had once been enemies now sought alliances with humanity, hoping to benefit from their wisdom and strength. Trade agreements were signed, defense pacts were formed, and cultural exchange programs were established. The galaxy was becoming more interconnected than ever before, thanks to the influence of humanity. The humans, humbled by their new role, were eager to share their knowledge and experience. They knew that the galaxy still faced many challenges, and they believed that by working together, all species could overcome them. They established educational programs, providing training and resources to those who needed them. They sent ambassadors to different planets, promoting peace and understanding. They used their influence to advocate for the rights of all species, regardless of their origin or their beliefs. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was at the forefront of that change. They were no longer the underdogs, the outsiders, the weaklings. They were now the leaders, the mentors, the heroes. And they were determined to use their power to create a better future for all. The galaxy looked to humanity, not with scorn or pity, but with respect and hope. They had proven that anything was possible with unity, resolve, and a little bit of humanity. Centuries passed. The galaxy flourished under the guiding hand of humanity. The principles of unity, resolve, and compassion became the cornerstones of galactic society. The lessons learned from the Void War were never forgotten. The Xyler, inspired by human creativity, developed new technologies that benefited all species. The Glorg, influenced by human courage, became the protectors of the galaxy, defending against any threat to peace and security. The Grochner, guided by human compassion, fostered understanding and cooperation among all cultures. The stories of Dr. Eris Thorne, Captain Eva Rostova, and Maria Sanchez became legends, inspiring generations of humans and aliens alike. Their names were synonymous with courage, ingenuity, and selflessness. Their example showed that even the smallest individual could make a difference in the world. The anniversary of the Void's defeat became a galactic holiday, a day to celebrate the power of unity and the triumph of the human spirit. It was a reminder that even in the darkest of times, hope could prevail, and that by working together, anything was possible. Humanity's legacy extended far beyond their victory over the Void. They had transformed the galaxy, not with weapons of destruction, but with the power of their will and their unity. They had shown that true strength wasn't about physical might or technological prowess. It was about the qualities of the human heart. And so, the galaxy remembered the day that humans revealed their true power. It wasn't a day of conquest or domination, but a day of revelation. It was the day that the galaxy learned that even the smallest, most underestimated species could possess the greatest strength. It was the day that the galaxy stopped calling humans weak and started calling them unstoppable. And that was a legacy that would endure for all time. A legacy of courage, a legacy of unity, a legacy of hope. A legacy that proved that anything is possible when we believe in ourselves, when we work together, and when we never give up. The humans, once the underdogs, had become the heroes of the galaxy, and their story would continue to inspire for generations to come.